Hey, I'm Jackie Siegel, and for any of you that have heard of the movie The Queen of Versailles, we actually have a follow-up of what happened after the Queen of Versailles movie came out, and it's called The Princess of Versailles. So it's basically about my late daughter that died of a drug overdose. It's very inspirational. It goes along with her diary that we put in a book called Victoria's Voice.
Now we heard Victoria's voice. She's teaching us to nothing but the start of choice. Hear the cry, the lonely voice. You never walk away, no matter what they say. Victoria's voice.
On behalf of Westgate and Ocoee, welcome, David Siegel.
200 young people, mostly young people, died yesterday from a drug overdose. 200 are going to die today. 200 are going to die tomorrow. Over 70,000 people a year are dying from the drug epidemic. Unfortunately, my daughter, Victoria, 18-year-old beautiful daughter, was one of them. And when she passed away, I didn't even know Xanax or Advil. I was the dumbest person on earth as regards to the drug epidemic. So we wrote this book called Victoria's Voice, and half that book, when you'll see when you start reading it, is about her diary, the way she wrote it, what she was thinking. A lot of you have teenagers. They're thinking the same things as she was. And the other half of the book is everything I learned. Of course, it's a little bit outdated, but most everything I learned is in the book about the drug epidemic. And the last 5 pages of the book especially say that ignorance is killing a lot of people. I was ignorant of what she was going through. I was ignorant of drugs. She was a mixed up teenager. Well, how many of you have mixed up teenagers? That's kind of the norm. And so we sent her to a psychiatrist for treatment. And when she came home, I said, what happened? And she said, he put me on Xanax. As I said, I didn't know Xanax from Advil. I said, oh, that's good. That's a magic pill. That means, in a few days you'll be acting normally again. Well, she wasn't, and a couple months later, we sent her back, and she came back home, and I said, what happened? And she said, he doubled my dosage. And that was the spiral. But of course, before that, I found out from her diary, that she was experimenting, like most 14, 15-year-olds, with marijuana. And I'm sure she got some other medicine out of our medicine cabinet, other drugs. So one day we were on vacation out of town, and we got the news that no parent ever wants to receive, that our daughter had died from a drug overdose. We found out that the first responders that came to the house were not carrying Narcan. How many of you know what Narcan is? If you don't, that's what most people don't know. This is Narcan, and I never leave home without it. This is the difference between life and death. Somebody could be overdosing, one breath from death, turning blue, laying on the ground, unconscious. You put this in their nose, you push the little button on the bottom, and within 2 to 5 minutes from laying one breath from death, they'll be sitting up telling you what they took. This is the greatest miracle drug ever. Very few people know about it. A lot of addicts don't know about it. It contains a drug called naloxone, which is, as I said, a miracle drug. And they call it the Lazarus drug. Brings people back, virtually back from dead. And yet, no one knows about it. Addicts don't know about it. Their parents don't know about it. But I can understand because it's only been out for 48 years. Nobody talks about it. Now, so a couple years ago, I got a call from Washington, D.C. that there was a drug bill that had been stuck in Congress for 3 years. And they asked if I could help. I didn't even know how to get to Washington, D.C., hardly. But I went up there and I walked the halls of Congress with Mark Waltrip, my COO, for 2 months, talking to every senator, every representative, every person I could talk to that had anything to do with the bill. When I got it passed unanimously, I even spoke in front of Congress.
Most of the deaths that are represented in this room could have been prevented if a naloxone was available. But either because of the price of it or because no one knows about it, I don't see the government doing public service announcements on naloxone. I don't see the drug companies talking about it. I see them talking about every opioid under the sun, and now they're even saying if your opioid makes you constipated, here's another opioid that'll solve that. There's no cry. There's no cry. This is the worst thing that's happening in this country today. We're under attack, and it's not by ISIS, and it's not by Iran, and it's not by North Korea. It's internal. This could become the fall of the Roman Empire if we continue this. Today it's 50,000. Next year it'll be 55,000. How many is enough? And when is somebody going to get out there and start doing something about it? I keep hearing about money isn't appropriated. Bills in Congress right now, they've been in there for months because I've been up here lobbying for them, and they're still in Congress. And the Senate passed a bill, but Congress wants to make their changes. People are dying by the minute, and no one is crying out, doing anything about it. It's time that it happens. The worst phone call you can ever receive is a phone call like I received when my daughter died. And since then, it was a wake-up call for me. I had no idea. I didn't even know what marijuana looked like. I had no idea what was going on in the country. But I decided, I have a large company. I turned it over to my executives, and I decided that the rest of my life will be dedicated to saving lives. And I've traveled this country. I've met with your Surgeon General, Vivek Murthy. I've met with the director of the DEA. I've visited rehabs all across the country. I've talked to experts. In 11 months since my daughter died, I've earned a PhD in drug education. And what it's taught me is how little it's being done, how few people know anything about this epidemic. It's not an epidemic, it's a pandemic.
I got it passed unanimously, and one of the provisions of it's called the CARA Act, C-A-R-A, Comprehensive Addiction Recovery Act, and one of the provisions is that every police officer, fireman, and first responder carry this throughout the country. I won't say all the police departments, but most of them. Orange County alone, where we are, has saved 1,000 lives a year. Seminole County saves 600 lives a year. And countrywide, they estimate that since the law was passed, about 200,000 lives a year are saved. So with this little thing I'm holding right here.